Hi everybody, welcome to another Write With Me Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about how to create a captivating world. So grab your favorite hot drink and let's get going. So in order to create a world that you want your readers to spend time in and that they enjoy, first go off of what you know that you love and you enjoy. Where do you like to spend your time? When you're sitting, waiting in the lobby, when you're in the elevator, when you're working out? What are the things that you like to think about and stay there? The little world you create for yourself. That's going to give you the best starting point for creating your first world. It gives you a point of reference, and it also gives you a lot more material that you would not have been able to think of if you hadn't already had that experience. And that is true for most of writing. Immerse yourself in that place. It is easy to think of all those little details when you have experience. So if you put yourself in the mindset of literally being there, you can think of so many more details than you ever could without it. I want to emphasize this quite a bit because it's so handy in so many situations, from building a world to that one stinker of a scene that you just can't quite figure out the right word for. If you imagine that you're talking to your best friend and that you're literally there, you're describing a story that you lived, it gives everything more life and it's so much easier than just thinking about all these adverbs and synonyms that you don't even care about. It's very handy. Questions to ask when you're trying to immerse yourself in a scene and get more details are, what does it sound like? What does it taste like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? All those senses that we use every single day is going to make it much easier, and helps direct your mind, your imagination, to give it a point to go forward and help you know which way to go. Because when you have imagination, it can go literally anywhere, and that's the biggest lesson that you gradually learn. It's how to control, direct, manipulate your own creativity to go in the direction that you want it to go, instead of it just taking off. And there's so many contradictions in imagination. However, those often spark the ideas to great worlds. You notice how I'm starting with talking about you as the author, as the person. I haven't even spoken about the world yet. Well, that's because a world starts at one little viewpoint. It could be an overview of history. It could be this one little moment. But that is how we experience the world, one moment at a time. So focus on the first moment of introduction. And then that's the moment that you're immersing yourself in. I wrote an example of this, and I want to point out a few key elements that begin with you and then broaden. She took a deep breath, imagining herself lying on a pile of clouds. The breeze was sweet and fresh, dancing through her auburn hair. She felt completely weightless, like she was suspended in water, yet covered in a blanket of warm sand. Her nostrils flickered as she rubbed her nose to deter a sneeze. Yet again, her allergies had broken her blissful trance of enjoying nature. She rested against a great maple tree that stood atop Senra's hill and overlooked the little village of Senra, her home. Now, I haven't even named who we're talking about in this example. However, you're instantly immersed in how this character feels. It gives you a relatability instantly to that character, because I don't know if you've ever been like just chilling hardcore and you're just so relaxed. That's what this moment is to describe. So to point out the questions I answered quite a few. She took a deep breath. How does it feel? How does it smell when I talked about the breeze being sweet and fresh? I give a little bit of her own description by talking about the wind dancing through her hair. She felt weightless. And then I use a simile. Simile? Simile. When you have something difficult to describe, it's best to relate it to what someone already knows, something they can relate with easily, and it helps fill in all those details and blank space. That gives you so much clearer of an idea of what you're talking about than if you just use a bunch of descriptions that aren't ever related back. Similes are awesome. That means you started with like, it was like this, or as this. It was like a cat pouncing on a frog. It was as cool as the ocean's waves. Start with what the character's feeling, and then I back it out to where she is. That's the next question when you're broadening your perspective. Where are you? Where is the character? Where am I? She rested against a great maple tree that stood atop Senra's hill. I chose to use a proper noun because I wanted to start broadening it out from just the character to a world. See, now we're starting to get into the world. We start with the little point, we get bigger. Senra's hill. I don't have a clue what Senra's hill is, except it's a nice hill. But it gives connection to the world. Like, this isn't a random hill. This is important. I related back to the character instantly. She rested against a great maple tree that stood atop Senra's hill and overlooked the little village of Senra, her home. So now we have a really strong start. We know that the character likes nature. She has allergies. She has long enough hair to be blowing in the breeze. That's Auburn. She likes to go out there often. She's on a hill that's well known, and she's by a village that's well known to the locals. I mean, of course you know what your home's name. All of that took place in just over a paragraph.
Wow.
You know where you are. Now, what buildings are there? What style are they? Are there people nearby? Who are they? What do they sound like? What do they feel like? Those are the questions that help you start beginning to build a bigger world. And one that's relatable, because if you ask questions literally anybody can relate to, anybody can answer and say how they feel or sound or talk, that is how you begin to build your world. What is the culture of the people? Culture is a huge element when it comes to worlds. And culture is defined by historical events that influence those ethnicities until they're now the people we see today. That's just how a world goes. The historical events of American Revolution, War for Independence, all that in America, beginning the Constitution, everything started way back then. That's what's brought today. Knowing that is a pattern in a world, and that is one you get to decide now how to manipulate. Natural laws. Remember I talked about boundaries and how you don't want to break a world, right? That is what these natural laws are for. Gravity, natural law. Energy can't be created from nothing, natural law. Water is wet, natural law. That's what we have in this world. That's just how it is. It's cool. It's science. They can be different for your own particular world, but they need to be set in stone once you make them. This can make your world unique, have interesting elements, can help you explore principal ideas that are personified, meaning represented by, or emphasized because of a particular facet of your world. For instance, maybe all water, instead of reflecting light, it absorbs light. And so that world is insanely dark for some reason. It's so simple of a change, but it makes it instantly unique and interesting. Fantasy does this all the time, and science fiction does it too in its own way. Depending on what story it is, it can be more or less subtle. Fantasy tends to be less subtle and science fiction more, but it really depends, and it's up to you. When you make a law, a natural law, think about how does this affect the culture? What's beneficial about it? And what is negative about it? What causes hindrances? Those limitations and those benefits for each side of it. when you create at least one benefit and at least one downside to a natural law, it's going to instantly help you develop that culture. Because just like how history affects and creates a culture, so does the environment around that people group. If you change a natural law, it's going to break your world. Let's take the water example. Water doesn't reflect light, it absorbs light. It's really dark around. If I all of a sudden say that, oh, and then it was super bright because the water started reflecting the light overhead, that's just confusing and it doesn't make sense. But the exception is if you did it on purpose. If you're going to break a natural law, make sure everybody knows it. Make sure the characters think it's weird. Because if that's the case, they're gonna be like, whoa, what caused the water to suddenly be reflective when it absorbed light before? So that now has become an interesting twist on your world instead of a breaking event. So there you have it. That's how you create a captivating world. Start with yourself, broaden your perspective. Where are you? What's the people, the buildings, the culture, the history? Out and out and out you go. All the way into space if that's where your story is headed. But it gives you somewhere to start. And I really hope this has been helpful. I hope that you guys can get out there and make some amazing worlds. 'Tis fun. 'Tis fun. Being consistent in your natural laws can make any crazy idea you have become a fully functioning world that slowly gets more fleshed out as you ask yourself more questions. All right, guys. See you in the next one. Get out there and get writing.